Welcome to the Red Bean Podcast, the New Orleans edition. This is your host, Mr. Toad.
And I'm Dr. Frog.
We're going to be talking about a movie called The Dead Zone. It was filmed in 1983, but originally the Dead Zone novel was written in 1979 by Stephen King. The story goes, when Johnny Smith, who was played by Christopher Walken, awakens from a coma caused by a car accident, he finds that years have passed, and he now has a psychic ability. Heartbroken that his girlfriend, Brooks Adams, has moved on with her life, Johnny also must contend with his unsettling powers, which allows him to see a person's future with a mere touch. After shaking the hand of an aspiring politician, Greg Stilson, played by Martin Sheen, Johnny sees the dangers presented by the candidate's rise and resolves to take his life.
Wow.
What were your thoughts, Dr. Frog, on The Dead Zone? I know I kind of pushed you into watching The Dead Zone, and I hope it was a good push.
Well, this film released in 1983, the exact same year that Christopher Walken's other movie, Brainstorm, released. And what I thought was interesting is there's a lot of parallels between the two movies, because they both deal with the same topic. The Dead Zone, and this is a spoiler for those who haven't seen it, refers to this, so like a lot of Stephen King novels, Walken awakes after this car accident,
traumatic injury.
Traumatic injury, yes, and has these headaches, but with it comes some powers. When he grips the hand of somebody, he can see significant events related to them, related to their lives, whether it's a child that's in danger for someone, or when they'll die and how. This reminded me a little bit of Brainstorm, which was the idea of being able to record people's experiences, and then you can either plug in and re-experience those things, or what they try to capture is that moment of death. They try to say, what's the recording like of the experience of death, which for Epicureans in ancient Greece would be nonsensical, because death by definition is non-experience. So you can't have an experience of non-experience by definition. That's what the Epicureans thought about the concept of death. But in this, whenever Christopher Walken said there was just this blank space, like after seeing the nuclear weapons supposedly launched by a future presidential candidate and
who was very psychotic,
who was very aggressive
and psychotic,
and thought they had the right.
Someone who
had a premonition that they would be president someday. Martin Sheen, we'll say.
Martin Sheen had this
wonderful
premonition of wanting to become the president.
It was great.
But he was also very manipulative.
Yeah, very charismatic.
He would blackmail you, and if he crossed his path, he has this guy called Sonny who's going to break both of your legs. One of the things I think was interesting about this film is...
Just wrap what I'd say, the Dead Zone refers to when he was viewing that, there was a part that was blank, and he couldn't see, and that's supposedly maybe death, represents death, or the non-existence of the person.
So in the novel, the phrase "dead zone" refers to the part of Johnny's brain that is irreparably damaged, resulting in his dormant psychic potential awakening. When some information in Johnny's visions is beyond his perception, he considers that information as existing in the dead zone. In the film's adaptation, the phrase "dead zone" is that part of his psychic vision that is missing.
Yes.
A blank area that he cannot see. This dead zone refers to an outcome that is not yet determined.
Yes.
Johnny can change the
future. Okay. So that's what it really was. First of all, what a difference from the book. The dead zone being the part of the brain that can't be accessed.
It was damaged.
Although, if you think there's a one-to-one correlation between him unlocking parts of his brain and seeing parts of the future, which, for a superpower kind of movie, like, it could be possible to have that kind of physicalist idea about the brain's connection to the mind.
I did like this idea that with this power, there's a lot of
Change the
consequences.
future.
Well, not only that, but he had terrible headaches 3 to 4 times a day.
Yeah.
So there's a consequence. He also feels like he's getting physically weaker. In the film, it also shows at a certain point where people start sending him letters trying to ask help.
Yeah.
They're saying, hey, I'm missing a child, or someone passed away, or I need to know what my future is. When you have someone that has the power to look in the future, we have a tendency to want to ask him questions, right?
Well, and he opened up the closet door full of these hopes and letters that were written to him.
And he doesn't know.
And he said, I can't help these people. They're looking for things that I can't give them, whether it's love or understanding or something. But he can see really odd, unique futures and that sort of thing. What a wonderful premise. And
I love the foreshadowing of the film, too.
Sure.
So the aspect with Johnny, who's our main character played by Christopher Walken,
yes,
as the plot it dictates here, it's in Castle Rock, Maine. A school teacher, Johnny Smith, politely declines when his girlfriend asks him if he wants to spend the night with her. But he also, in the film, it shows that he's having some headaches or some issues while he was riding on a roller coaster. That night, he does drive his car, and unfortunately this car crashes into a milk truck, which is all that milk, white, yellow liquid.
Hey,
I was like,
milk
oh,
gives
man.
you superpowers maybe, so give it a try.
Don't cry over spilled milk.
Yeah, no use crying.
Actually, there was a lot of crying in this film.
But you can cry over Christopher Walken's body.
Yeah, when he's mangled and he's in a coma for 5 years. So Johnny discovers that he has gained the ability to psychically see aspects of people's lives, past, present, and future, through the physical contact. As he touches a nurse's hand, he sees his daughter trapped in a fire. What did you think about that scene where he sees the girl screaming in the room and there's fire? You can even see the fish bowl getting so hot it's boiling and it explodes.
Well, and we even saw some backdraft. With so
that's another movie.
Movie review we did. Yeah, the thing is, at first I wasn't sure if he was going to directly affect it. Like, what if he carried the daughter out of the house and then suddenly he was teleported back maybe to the hospital and then he said, I saved your daughter.
Yeah.
And then maybe like her story would corroborate with his. And, I wasn't sure where it was going, but, he didn't try to interact and he almost hated himself for it. In other scenes where he didn't step in to prevent a crime. But at the same time, we didn't know whether he could interact. Because he never got to that point of, he moved the bed sheets, for example, when he turned.
Yeah.
So maybe he can affect some things in the world. But I was wondering...
But when he was laying in the bed, did you see that the bed was on fire while he was laying in the bed?
Yes.
That was crazy to me. But I love that because... many times when you see films about looking into the future, the past, or the present, or some type of... normally, people are kind of withdrawn from the environment. What I think makes The Dead Zone very unique and different is that I kind of feel like Johnny is a little bit more interactive. Like, he's sitting there really close to seeing someone drowning, to seeing his daughter, this lady's daughter, in a fiery building, and her home's burning and everything. What I do like about this idea is that this ability with the Dead Zone, meaning that Johnny can change the future.
Yeah, he started thinking about his power differently when he took that more seriously. And he started working with the police to solve crimes and those sorts of things. I was wondering, though, instead of the past, present, or past, future, and present, maybe Christopher Walken, we could say, could have seen the past, future, and president. Since he had that vision about the president. But, it's perfect Christopher Walken. I really see a meshing of themes between Brainstorm, that was also released in 1983, and I think it had a $16 million budget. But I see a kind of similar thing with this one. This one, of course, had only a $7.1 million budget.
But at box office, it made $20.8 million U.S. Canada. Yeah. And then it made $16.3 million worldwide. So it did get its money back.
But yeah, it was paranormal, but it dealt with a lot of sci-fi themes, I think, there was also someone who, when they learned that, of this, They thought, well, this is an unnatural power.
Wyzak. So the doctor
Wyzak, yeah.
who's looking after Christopher Walken, Johnny
It
here,
wasn't meant to be.
he grabbed his hand as he was holding him because he was getting kind of nervous about his life and his health.
Sure.
Then he started seeing this vision of World War II, of a small child being put into a cart, being shipped away because of the war and all these horrible things happening.
In Poland, I think.
In Poland. And one of the things I thought was so interesting about that scene was that Christopher Walken's character, Johnny, was like, Doctor, your mother's alive, and that boy is you. And he's like, and then I love the scene where he has the information, he calls, and he's like, can I speak to Johanna? And all of a sudden he starts hearing her talk, and he just covers his face, he covers his eyes, and when he talks to Johnny the next time around, he's kind of like, so did you talk to her? He's like, I can't.
Yeah, he said some things aren't meant to be.
Some things are not meant to be.
This reminds me of what a Kantian, someone who follows Immanuel Kant, might do in the trolley problem. If you're on a runaway trolley and it's going to hit some people, but you could pull the lever, thereby engaging within the outcome, and go down a different track that's going to hit another group of people. Sometimes some Kantians would say, I'm not going to participate in that. I'm going to stand back.
I'm going to stand back and not touch anything.
But if I'm the one that turns if I start this from an unnatural point of information for that doctor, then he's participating in shaping that different future.
So my question is, are you saying you take ownership if you put your hands on the lever and you pull it? But if you don't put your hands on the lever, you're not taking ownership or responsibility.
You're taking ownership of changing the direction of the future.
Okay.
And of your life and the connections of others. But I think because he saw the power as something that was unnatural somewhat, he was like, I'm not going to mess with it. Some things aren't meant to be. If there wasn't this power, I would never know.
Yeah.
And
I thought my mom had died years ago.
It's something where maybe even psychologically, he'd already come to terms with the death of his mother.
Yeah,
so decades later, it's like, I'm going to live in my reality, even if it's not true.
What I also liked about this film is that you had someone called the Amazing Randy. He always went out and he tried to figure out who was the phony.
Oh, the Amazing Randy's
the Amazing Randy.
James Randi was an excellent magician, and then turned, after he realized people were taking it very seriously, debunked a lot of different psychics, especially in the 70s. And
what I liked about this film is that they did depict a pushy reporter who got up there and he was kind of saying, well, can you predict who's going to become the senator? Do you think Greg Stilson is going to win his position? He's like, I don't even know who that is. And he's like, well, how are you able to help this lady? Why can't you help in the same way? And he's like, well, I touched her hand. And one of the things I think was interesting was that when he put his hand on the reporter's hand and he started talking to her, one of the things he was trying to commit was
to him, I think
to the reporter. He said, you're wondering why your sister took her life. You're wondering.
It got too real for the reporter.
It got too real. He was like, I don't want to see. I want to get my hand away from him. He pushed him away.
What's amazing? If it really is about what's significant in your life,
I think
what's significant to the mother, the child? What's significant to that brother, the sister, right?
Yeah.
The politician's not connected to any of them in a significant way. Why would holding the hand of a random person suddenly tell you the outcome of something that's significant for Martin Sheen's character, the Greg or whoever's running?
I think it's meaningful because something that he's doing is having an impact on other people's lives.
Yes.
That's one thing I enjoyed about watching Johnny come to terms with this new psychic ability. By placing his hand on someone, he can see a vision of the future, but a future that's not been written yet, and there's a possibility we can change it in some way. And I like this idea that as he's going through this process of coming back to home, because at the same time he's going through a lot of rehabilitation, because he had difficulties walking and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
One thing I did like about this part of the story was Sheriff George Bannerman from nearby Castle Rock asked Johnny for help with a series of murders. What did you think about this whole aspect of Johnny being involved in solving crimes by helping the Castle Rock sheriff?
Well, maybe it sounded better than it actually was for Christopher Walken's life. Now, some of that is they don't know the sacrifice he makes when he uses his power. It's really painful. They'll say, oh, well, you could help out. You know, you have this God-given power. You can help out the police. It's going to be all dandy. And he says, this isn't a gift.
This is a curse.
This is a curse, yeah. And, you know, Christopher Walken, for most of the movies, is Christopher Limpin, as he was told it would be a very painful recovery to walk again, and then he could...
He's limping, yeah.
He's limping and stuff. I think also he does eventually help out when he looks at the news reports, and the police are just like, if the community can give any support,
any help,
we really need it. It looks like they have 2 officers in that small town.
Yeah, it was like I think it was like 3 or 4 officers. It was a smaller town, but one of the things that I did like about it was that you could tell that...
Probably just as many as New Orleans.
Johnny, yeah, well, we have quite a few, but I would say, at least with Johnny, one of the things I did like about it was his interaction with his father. Because at that time, his father's wife, Johnny's mother, has passed away, and so Johnny's father's kind of by himself with his son. And one of the things you could tell is that he kind of wants to tell his son to go and help the police, but at the same time, when he hears him scream about this curse, he's kind of like, I don't know how I can help you because you're going through this pain, and I don't understand. How would you talk to someone, Dr. Frog, if they had this ability or a gift, but there was a great price for that gift, but it would do a lot of good for the community? What would you tell them to encourage them to keep using that gift, or maybe not? What would you say?
Well, I'm surprised. I get that he gets lots of mail, but I'm surprised that our military didn't reach out to him, the FBI.
I'm sure they would. I'm sure those letters, some of those letters are probably from the CIA or FBI, probably.
Well, maybe not letters. I expected more knocks on the door. But, you know, it was one where I think, you know, if the headaches were the problem... You know, I know that he kept getting given pills and stuff, but you know, maybe there was a way to get a better support system, because his initial response was to pull away and be alone. Yeah, be a recluse from everyone.
Yeah, he's trying to get away from people.
But I think sometimes when we're struggling the most, you know, and you see this sometimes with animals that kind of crawl into a corner and go away when they're worried that their time is up, and using the power feels like, Christopher Walken says, it feels like he's dying. So it makes sense that he wants to crawl away. But there's another option. There's getting a good support system. I get that his now ex-girlfriend got married and has family,
and he wanted to marry her.
But lean into it. You can be a friend. Yeah. You know, at least you have a friend. You could reach out and have other friends, and you know, build that support system. I think too often we maybe glamorized the lone hero. There were lots of moments where he was putting on a strong face, not using crutches, just for the appearance of strength. Yeah, I think sometimes that can, you know, lead to someone's death quicker.
Yeah, and, maybe they're thinking about other people
other
than themselves.
There's another strategic way, for example, of preventing the future senator from becoming a president.
That's true.
That didn't involve some lone wolf theory about I'm on my own, there's no support, no one's going to believe me.
Well, here's the thing that I think
he could have lived and hopefully managed his headaches and hopefully prevented World War III or whatever.
Yeah. You know? What did you think about Frank Dobbs? So one of the things I think was interesting is that as Johnny is helping Sheriff George Bannerman, one of the things he realizes with this Castle Rock killer is that the first evidence they found were these pack of cigarettes, like cigarette pack that was kind of smushed. He was rubbing his fingers on it. He was looking around, and he's like, I don't have anything.
Got nothing. It's got to be a hand.
It has to be
it has to be something that's directly important to the hand you're holding.
Yeah.
So for the murder victim, when he was holding the corpse's body. You know, what was important to that person's life.
And he was just standing there.
You can't just pick up a piece of evidence off the ground.
One of the things I liked about Christopher Walken's performance is that the way he reacted, just standing there being like, he's witnessing the crime. He's right there and he sees it. One of the things that shocked me, I guess, when I first saw this movie is when I saw the killer's face, I was like, wait a second, that's Officer Frank Dobbs. That's the assistant sheriff deputy of Sheriff George Bannerman. And I love the idea that he was like, it's Dobbs. And then he's like, wait a second, Dobbs? Hey, Dobbs, can you get up here?
Well, I was there. As soon as Dobbs heard him say, I was there, I saw it. I saw the face. Then that's when Dobbs is like, I'm out of here.
I will challenge anyone right now who's listening to this show right now. Rewatch this scene, and I swear this is the first time I've heard it, but I was sitting there listening to it. You could actually hear the sound of the car engine being cranked up, and you could hear the car driving away.
There you go.
As he's sitting there like, oh my gosh, I saw it, and I didn't do anything, and you hear the car driving away. Because this guy already knows. He's like, wait a second, the jig is up.
That's the assistant deputy to the sheriff being like, hey, I'm going to go to the corner store and get some milk for the department.
Yeah, it's like, hey sheriff, I got to drive out of here.
Maybe you don't show up to your afternoon shift.
I think I left something in the oven, sheriff. I got to get out of here quick.
We already have milk in the fridge. What are you doing?
Why is he driving away so fast? Yeah, this is a 15-mile-an-hour road here.
Town over
35.
He always buys organics at the next town over.
So what happens ultimately in this scene is that eventually Johnny and Sheriff George Bannerman finally go to Dobbs' home. They get there and they look up and you can see Frank Dobbs basically naked in his room looking down at the window, and he pretty much knows it's over.
He knows it's over. They got him surrounded by his one exit. And I like how when they held the mother's hand, his mom said, you knew.
You knew.
And she was like shocked, like, what?
And she's like, you're a demon sent from hell. And she just lost her stuff right there. Because when she gets and I think this is interesting about human psychology, when we are confronted with something that's adamantly opposed against us, we either have two options. Either one, we have an acceptance of being like, yes, I'm wrong, or two, I'm going to double and triple down on what I'm doing.
I don't understand how people can double and triple down. I've seen tons of people who have a habit of lying, and boy, do they wrap themselves up in some enigma.
They like to dig it deep.
Yeah, they're like, oh, this one lie will cover another lie, and this next lie will cover that lie.
So unfortunately for Mr. Dobbs, he was found not alive in his bathroom, and it was pretty grotesque, but not as grotesque as you would have thought. But it was pretty much a shock. You're like, well, I guess the killings are in Castle Rock are to finally be resolved, I guess, after this.
Well, the killings were in Fraggle Rock. That would be a lot more fun. You know, the Jim Henson Muppets.
It's the place close to Castle Rock.
Fraggle Rock is in Maine. Isn't Maine where Stephen King did the writing?
Yep. And Bangor, Maine. Bangor.
Wasn't Maine also referenced in Silent Hill?
Originally
it was Colorado, but they confirmed that Maine was the original place that they were going to do it, at least for Silent Hill 2 for the setting.
And unfortunately, what did Johnny get for solving the crime of finding the Castle Rock killer? Did he get a ticket to Hawaii? Or B,
or Honolulu,
did he get a free car? Or 3, did he get shot and was he laying on the steps of this killer's house by being shot by the mother of the killer? If you guess 3, that's actually what happened. He did get shot. He did not get a ticket to Hawaii.
He did get a big house afterwards, though.
He did get a house afterwards, and I think pretty...
You know, this reminds me of Office Space, when you have that guy who came up with the jump to conclusions, Matt.
Yeah.
And that one guy in the office, he's like, you just got to have one good idea. Well, you know, he's in the garage, tries to life, backs out, gets hit by a car, and then it's like, hey, keep at it, $1 million settlement.
Maybe you could be just like me.
You could be successful someday, like me.
And he's in a wheelchair with his
paralyzed.
He has a neck brace.
Oh my goodness.
He's not moving around.
It just shows the fascination people have with materialism for that. But yeah, so, it looks like he's probably renting it.
Yeah.
He's doing some tutoring on the side.
Johnny moves to a different town and lives a more isolated life as he grows physically weaker due to his psychic abilities. Despite Isaac's concerns, Johnny refuses further treatment. He tutors children working from home.
There you go.
The wealthy Roger Stewart hires Johnny to tutor his son Chris. Though Stewart, Johnny meets Greg Stilson, a superficially charismatic third-party candidate for the United States Senate, for whom Sarah and her husband Walt volunteer. Stewart warns Johnny that Stilson is dangerous.
Yes.
What did you think about the relationship that Johnny had with his son, Chris?
Well, it seemed distant, and he, the child, Chris, seemed to think that his father was projecting his own isolation with the father's own isolation.
Sure.
Saying, no, it's my kid that's isolating themselves. No, it's the father. And connecting to the son through lots of questions, going for a walk. I think it was a good model for how to connect to your kids if you're a parent that's feeling like you can't connect to your kid. Just
maybe the kid was shy, the way the father described his son.
Maybe listen to them more instead of telling them what to do or what to be. Listen to who they want to be and what they feel. In
one of Johnny's one of his episodes, Johnny receives a vision of Chris and two other boys drowning in a local pond during an ice hockey game. He implores Stewart to change his plans, but he refuses and fires Johnny. Chris, however, stays home and lives while the two other boys drown. Johnny realizes he has a dead zone in his vision where the future is changeable. What did you think about the part where Johnny calls the house and you can see the father just sitting in the chair and he's not saying anything, he's just staring off in the distance, and then Johnny picks up the phone and he's like,
and the kid answers.
Yeah, and the Chris picks up the phone and he's like,
good on the kid for answering the house.
Yeah, because the father, he couldn't do it. He was too emotionally damaged.
At that age, would you answer the phone?
At that age, I would have answered the phone.
My parents did not want me as a kid to answer the phone until I was a bit older. If you're 7 or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. So anyway, I think that showed that he really cared about his student. I'm surprised the newspaper didn't mention the names. It just said, two
drownings. Well, if they're underage, you don't want to put kids' names in the newspaper.
Good point.
Underage.
There's
like
concerns.
Privacy concern for children.
If they passed away,
they may have but that was like the day of the incident or something. They're probably still collecting information. But one of the things I would say that made that scene so powerful is the look of the father's face, sitting there, and
he knew that he almost
was
killed
wrong.
His kid.
He almost killed his son. He killed two other kids.
That's exactly what Chris Walken said. Do you want to kill your kid?
He takes his case and he smashes the glass.
You're making it up. Go away. Get out of here. We'll listen to you, but get out of here. I never want to see you. It's ego and pride,
and you can see,
and it was shattered. That's what he was mourning. He was mourning that he almost let his ego harm his family,
and he almost killed his son. And these two other kids are killed.
Closer together. Who knows?
He's probably thinking to himself, maybe had I listened to Johnny, maybe those kids would still be alive today.
Yeah.
And one of the things I would say about that scene that's also really powerful is,
to be fair, he wasn't going to vote for Greg.
Yeah,
so he wasn't going to vote for someone who was going to start World War III.
Exactly. But one of the things I would say about that scene that's so powerful, so moving, is this idea that the father knew he was wrong, and he just didn't have the power or strength or ability to pick up that phone. But I'm glad that Chris survived and Johnny was able to help.
He wanted to save face in front of the other kids and fathers.
I guess we're going to get to the next point of the plot of the film is, at a political rally, Johnny shakes Stilson's hand and has a vision of Stilson as president, ordering a preemptive nuclear strike. Johnny seeks out Isaac's advice, asking, for instance, if he would have killed Adolf Hitler, maybe during the 1930s, before he rose to power, if he had the chance, knowing beforehand the atrocities Hitler would commit, would you do it? Would you kill Hitler? Would you kill Hitler, Dr. Frog, if you knew?
If I had full knowledge, sure. But, there's a counter-argument that there could be a worse person that gets into power, but probably not. Here's the thing, though. You still would have a disaffected Germany. Look, let's say yes, you would, right?
If you knew what he was about to do, would you stop him?
Well, yeah, of course. Here's the thing, though.
And are you responsible if you don't stop him? He does aren't you responsible?
Yeah, but this is separate from the actual thing that was happening in the movie, and I was going to point out the disanalogy. I think it's a weak analogy. It'd be like me saying, would you eat cherry pie or strawberry? You have to answer this. You'd say, no, we're talking about this time travel Hitler case, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's like we're not going to answer the strawberry pie question. We're going to answer the Hitler question.
Let's do it.
Even answering the Hitler question has nothing to do. I think it's a very weak analogy to what actually happened on screen.
Okay.
On screen, the only knowledge he didn't have full knowledge. All he knew is that a nuclear weapon was being approved to send.
Yes.
What they might not have shown, what if there was a nuclear weapon being sent over here? Do you think it's ever justifiable to use a nuclear armament?
So one thing...
Because if you think it's never justifiable, then that makes sense that he's like, well, I got to kill this guy.
I think the only rebuttal I have for... The reason I have a rebuttal against that is that in the vision, towards the end, when they're pressing the buttons and they got the nukes flying and all that good stuff, they go and say, Stilson goes out and he says, guards, let the guards out. And then the vice president and I think the secretary of defense comes up and they basically try to tell Stilson, hey, Stilson, we can talk about this. We can do a peace agreement. We don't have to escalate.
And they already said don't escalate.
Yeah, don't escalate. And Stilson's like, no, I want to escalate because I want to become famous. I want to be remembered forever. I want to be written in the book.
What an evil guy thing to say. Like, if you're going to justify something, you
normally
an evil guy.
Yeah, it's like I'm here because I want to be here for a vain reason. I'm not here to help the world.
My only pushback is not having full knowledge.
Are you voting for Stilson?
And by the way,
tell me, Dr. Fry. Are you voting for Stilson, Dr. Fry?
Don't look at me. I voted for Kodos instead of Kane. If you remember the Simpsons one with Kane and Kodos. It was a recreation of the Clinton-Dole election, and they end up being aliens. And so whichever one wins, it's like, well, they're going to enslave the human race. And so, they were like, at the very end, it was like, well, don't get mad at me. I voted for the other guy. And they're like, well, I think we'll vote for a third party. And
one of the things I think...
Simpsons are great, old Simpsons.
Yeah. One of the things I would think is really powerful about this film is that the relationship between Johnny and Wyzak, who's the doctor of Johnny, I like how Wyzak replies that he would have no choice but to kill him. Johnny leaves Sarah a letter telling her that he's about to do will cost him his life, but is a worthwhile sacrifice. I liked what he said in the film. He said, no one will understand why I did what I did. They'll never understand all the lives that have been saved or potentially have been killed. I will never be revered as a hero. I just want you to know that I'm doing this for the right reasons.
For the right reasons. Yeah, here's the thing with moral dilemmas in general, because people like to bring them up like kind of gotchas, like, haha, I got you. With moral dilemmas, the fact that we're admitting it's a dilemma, means that there are two justifiable options. And what we really do, we don't really care about the conclusions of this. We really more care about the reasons giving. So the question is like, yes or no. Like, what if someone said, yeah, I would kill baby Hitler if I could travel back in time. But it's just because I like killing. I don't even care if it did any good afterwards.
I think the motivation,
character
you have
way different.
You have the right motivation. If you're killing Hitler before he becomes Hitler,
character assessments are what we're really doing.
And someone says, "Why did you do this?"
Yeah.
I like what Johnny's saying. He says, "No one will understand why I did what I did, but I want you to know I'm doing this for the right reason."
But I still think he's going off of, okay, look, how long was he holding on to that hand? That was a long cutscene.
See, the problem is...
All he knows is some buttons are pushed for...
The problem is that this is a guarantee. This is the problem with the Dead Zone, is that you see the future, you see the place where things may change.
Like, look, I get it. If it starts World War III, I'm just wondering, do we have all the information of... I think there are no other options. This wasn't a justifiable use of nuclear armaments.
Sure.
But all we had was, well, the next person that walked in the room said, stop, there's a peaceful option. Do you think the complexities of politics are always, Gosh, we had this peaceful option. I just like nukes and ruining civil humanity
and destroying human beings.
Maybe if we have a deranged enough person in power, that could be the motivation. I just think if I have a little vision for a couple seconds, I'm not going to jump to like, I definitely know what's right or wrong.
I think what's really powerful, and we're going to read the last plot point in the film. Sarah and her family attend a rally for Stilson. Johnny also sneaks in with a rifle, and he shoots at Stilson but misses.
There we go.
In the ensuing commotion, Stilson grabs Sarah's baby and holds him up as a human shield, which a photographer captures on film. Before Johnny can fire again, he's shot by Stilson's bodyguard. Johnny touches Stilson's hand and foresees that after the photograph is published, Stilson's career is in disgrace, and he commits suicide.
Well, yeah, I would have said ended his life.
Well, he ended his life. All right, if everyone's... hopefully I won't get in trouble for that. Thus averting the nuclear attack, Johnny lies, and as he's dying, Sarah embraces him and tells him that she loves him as he passes away.
So again, it's supposedly a better thing that, I'm so glad that Christopher Walken didn't shoot the guy because...
he missed him.
Because he's going to shoot himself later. So that makes it okay because at least Christopher Walken didn't do the wrong thing.
I think he tried, but he wasn't a good shot. And you know what this? I'm going to go off on a different.
They wanted you to be like the moral good guy. They wanted that. They wanted you to empathize with Walken's character.
The problem with Johnny is that he's not a good shot. You know, he needs he needs a tripod.
He's looking at his wife while taking the shot. Anyone who knows about it, you keep your eye on the target.
Yeah.
You shouldn't look. And if you're going to look at something, you probably don't want to look at your loved one while you pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Even if your gun's pointed to something else.
But I will say this: I think Stilson and his truest nature was revealed when he picked up this child, this baby, screaming like crazy,
and held
it up as a human shield. I'm like, you're done.
Now
you're done.
Look. If the goal is for him not to be president, this is what I was saying earlier. There's other ways of him not being president besides trying to kill him. Similarly, what if Hitler got accepted into art school at Vienna and he didn't, but you know, if you think of the butterfly effect, he could have thrown a hot dog from the rafters. I think that it might have had the same effect. People would be like, "Oh, I don't like him." Or here's another one. Here's what I would have done. If you ask me what I would do, what I would do is build up such a public confidence in my fortune-telling abilities that then I can drop later. When I shook his hand, I saw that he would make this rash decision one time.
See, the problem...
Then you have believability on your side through proved experience with the public.
See, the problem here, and this is the only pushback I would give on that, is that I feel like Stilson and that guy, Sonny, his enforcer, this guy was...
not going to take no for an answer.
He's not... One, they're not going to say no for an answer. Not only that, but they're going to threaten you with violence, and they're going to blackmail you. Just like they did to the reporter that basically spilled the beans on this guy.
Look, you move out of a small town in Maine, you look at the world a little differently. You know?
Of course.
You don't see the same people at the store. Every time I go to the store, I don't recognize a single person.
Yep.
Over like 10 years. Maybe it's like New Orleans. It's a big city. You know...
I will say this though. I was walking down the mall today, and I did notice someone that I've seen before. I just didn't have a chance to talk to him because I was in such a rush.
Oh, that was cool. But you know,
it's nice. But the world is not as small. Not very often.
Not very often. Yeah.
Not very often.
But maybe it's like, okay, look, if you're in like a big city, you're gonna look at it differently. If you're
maybe at a parade or something, or like Mardi Gras.
If you're in a small town and the local politician doesn't like you, it feels like you're trapped. It feels like there's no way out. This guy's got a meal ticket. Maybe he can hold the hand of a sports player and tell who's going to win the World Series or tell who's going to win the Super Bowl that year. Make a lot of money off that power, right? But now, look, you're not necessarily beholden to... Either way, I think there were other options than kill. And that's why I think there's a disanalogy between the time travel World War II one.
I think it was also interesting that, one, this was not filmed in Maine, but it was filmed in Greater Toronto.
Really?
Yes.
Toronto looked a lot like Maine, actually.
I know. It really did look like Maine. I kind of felt like I was in Maine, but we weren't there. I did like that David Cronenberg was the director.
Wonderful direction.
And one of the things I would say about this movie that I really like over a lot of other movies, 103 minutes long.
Short and to the point.
Short to the point.
Eerie.
Man.
You were right there with the roller coaster. You know, it started out on a roller coaster, and I think that was a metaphor for the rest of the movie.
Yeah. I felt like there was not a single moment where you're like, okay, I'm looking at the watch. Is this going to end? No, I felt like every moment you had to pay attention. Something was happening. You had to look. You know, there was no dullness into the movie, and I felt like there was. I felt like the movie, like as the roller coaster you mentioned, we were going somewhere.
It's like a Rolling Stone. Yeah.
Like a Rolling. Actually, no, not like because the Rolling Stone.
How do you feel?
How do you feel? We're talking about.
We're just making random Bob
Dylan jokes here in case anyone's wondering why we just threw it into that.
I'd like to look at.
We're going to definitely check that out.
Again, look at Brainstorm if you like this movie.
Yeah.
It deals with similar themes. Christopher Walken's a doctor in that other one, and he discovers a way of recording and reliving memories. And there's a lot of cool science fiction stuff around that. This is a great film that gets right to the point.
I would also say with this film, I guess we're getting to that point. On a scale from 1 to 10, 1 not being very good, 10 being amazing, what would you give it, Dr. Frog?
I'm going to give it an 8.5.
Okay.
It was definitely more drama-focused, relationship-focused, inward-focused for the main character. I would have liked it to expand a little beyond the little suburb or little town in Maine. I think that there's opportunity here to take the thought experiment of what if you could have this power. And instead of worrying about, you know, okay, the headaches are bad, but how do I navigate emotions after the health condition? I think that took up a lot of the drama. This is definitely more of a drama. And I would have liked to see some of the more philosophic implications explored a little bit earlier. But it is short and sweet. It was a wonderful adaptation from a Stephen King novel. And I believe I said 8.5 or so. But this is something I would definitely recommend, especially if you're a sci-fi or horror fan. And Christopher Walken's great. This is Deer Hunter was in the 70s, or 76, I think. Might have been 72, but I think it was 76. Brainstorm, the exact same year, 83, deals with some of the same themes. I highly recommend both those films. But The Dead Zone, for me, gets a definite go watch.
Definitely watch. I give this film a 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
The reason why I give this 9 out of 10 is this is peak Stephen King. This is peak Christopher Walken. If you want to see Stephen King at his best, if you want to see Christopher Walken at his best, I feel like The Dead Zone is a wonderful film. I think Christopher Walken carried this movie. His mannerisms, the way he was kind of reluctant, the way he yelled, the way he emoted, I felt that was very powerful. I also really love the cinematography. If you're a fan of cinematography, if you like different camera angles, lighting, and things like that, I think you're going to really enjoy this movie. And I also like this idea that we have like a moral dilemma. And I think it's always interesting that if you can watch a movie and then you walk away from it and you can keep thinking about, well, if there is a Hitler out there and I knew about him before he became Hitler, would I stop him? And I think that's a valid question for anyone to ask themselves. And I like how the doctor answered it. He said that in my profession, my job is to care for people, love people, treat people, and anyone who's so anti-life, I would have to stop them, even at the results of my own demise.
Well,
and I think you were mentioning that maybe there's a different way to do it.
Well, yeah, there's a different way, but I don't want to harp on the weak analogy that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
I want a new thing, which is the theme here is sacrifice.
Yeah.
For the betterment of others, and is the sacrifice worth it? If you know what's objectively good, is it worth the sacrifice? Are you strong enough to do it? Whether it's physically, mentally. And in this film, he was constantly pressed with people saying, there's help that's needed, you have this gift, you can help. And he constantly had to sacrifice himself, even to the point of losing
his own health,
of losing his own life.
Yeah, and of losing his life.
Whereas we saw, by contrast, a sort of antagonist, Greg, the senator, the soon-to-be senator, how he dealt with the struggle of sacrifice when faced with a challenge. During the future, where he didn't get the presidency,
he would never sacrifice anything that could hurt him. he will always sacrifice other people,
and you saw how he dealt with his own life.
And if he can take a small child and use him as a human shield, what does that mean when he becomes president? I mean, that tells you
instead of protecting and serving the people, he's going to use the people.
He's going to protect and serve himself, but he's never going to serve the people because he only wants to serve himself and no one else.
So you had this wonderful contrast, and I just think the theme of sacrifice and is it worth it came out. Is the pain that I'm going to experience from using this power worth the benefit that it can bring to people?
And that makes for our review, The Dead Zone movie by Stephen King. We're talking about the 1983 science fiction thriller directed by David Cronenberg, and the novel was taken by Stephen King in 1975. If you've seen this movie, please make a like and subscribe and tell us what part of the film did you like the most. And if you've not seen it, and now you recently saw it because you saw our review, what did you like about The Dead Zone?
Yeah, and leave your comments below, like and subscribe. We're really excited to hear your thoughts, and thank you for taking the time to listen.
We hope you have a wonderful day. This is your host, Mr. Toad.
And I'm Dr. Frog.
We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Take care.